and first discuss and find out the problem areas, because me and Paraj, we have been working on pattern ERG in glaucoma, and I think we did it long back in 2014, but we could publish it in 2017. And during the publication of that particular article, we understood that there were a lot of problems in the machine which we were using at that point of time. And we have been using I have been using couple of other machines also. So this talk is basically on what pattern ERG and how pattern ERG can help in diagnosing early glaucoma patients. This is just a brief about history of electrophysiology, and it was way back in 1865 it was started. And now basically the whole portfolio of electrophysiology would include these things. We would be discussing mainly about pattern ERG, that is a part of electroretinogram. So because there's a difference in the basic ERG and pattern electro ERG basically tells us about the macula and the second order neurons, that is the disc. And what is the need of ERG? We already have these investigations. To know about the structure, we have OCT, and to know about the function, we have the visual field. But we know that the visual field suffers from the problem that it is subjective, and OCT has a small limitation that it is mainly it is mainly the OCT is mainly the structural part of it, and we cannot find out whether the function is normal or not. And therefore, the only objective way is to have a light-induced or a stimulus-induced visual response, which is pattern ERG. And so we know now that the functional changes do precede the structural changes, and that is where the whole the title of the presentation, that we should find out the sick cells or the dying cells before the cell death. And electrophysiology, there are a couple of not couple of papers, there are multiple papers saying that there are the now voice is coming.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, ERG would demonstrate the cell, it would demonstrate the cell sickness and the stress of ischemic condition well before the actual cell death. We are a small group, so you can interrupt, and you can if there is a problem, you can interrupt, and you can very well. Okay. So can the whole point is whether we can measure this beforehand. And if we can at all measure this beforehand, can we measure the effect of intervention that we are taking? In short, what I want to say is whether, say, if we know that there is a cell sickness, and if we treat the cause, whether that cell will recover or not. That is what we need to find out. Now, this is just a predictive value of neovascularization, and this is well before the fluorescent angiogram, because fluorescent angiogram will basically depict the retinal ischemia and not really the sick cells. This is a very old article. This was published in 1998, and this is the Gansfield, which is used for stimulating the. This is the Gansfield, which is used for stimulating the giving the visual stimulus, and this is the handheld dome. These are basically for electrophysiology. For pattern ERG, we use a checkerboard pattern, and this is the junction box, and this is the reference electrode, which is used for electrophysiology. This is one side. This is for the ground electrode. This is for one eye, and this is for the other eye. And these are some of the electrodes which I was using with our previous ERG machines. For this particular diapsis machine, we are using skin electrodes. There is obviously a difference when it comes to the electrode usage. If you are using a contact electrode, obviously the potential that you get, the amplitude or the magnitude of the whole waveform that you get is much higher. But then it suffers from the problem of compliance, because you have to put it directly on the eye, Boolean Allen is definitely very uncomfortable. This electrode is definitely comfortable, but it would obviously suffer from the problem of reduced potentials. But the advantage is that the software part is good, and so that gives a good backup. This is the basic electrophysiology as we know about it. This is the waveform of maximal combined response, but this is not what we are going to see. A pattern ERG response is much different. It has a N35P50 and N75. So this is a basic electrophysiology waveform, and these are the routine indications of electrophysiology. And this is again the basic of mini Gansfield, or which we use in diapsis. This is the normal waveform that you see in a pattern ERG. This is what we used to do some couple of years back. So this had a reversal rate of 6 patterns, and this is a transient wave. Whereas what has been done here is that this is a steady state with a higher pattern reversal rate per second, and this basically is a single waveform which is an average of multiple waveforms which has been taken. So this was the paper I was talking about, which we published in 2017. The whole purpose again was whether we can predict that this particular patient would develop glaucoma, whether we can do it in early glaucoma, and whether we can find out in ocular hypertensives. The only problem which we had during this particular paper was that the variability issue was very high, and with the potentials being very small, it was very difficult to know which particular what amount of magnitude would be significant and which won't be significant. So this is another paper where they have discussed that pattern ERG can be helpful in early detection and much earlier than the actual structural loss. The question which this study is definitely there, but the question is whether we can actually do it prior to OCT or not, and if at all we can do it before OCT, whether it is reliable enough or not. The whole question is whether we can diagnose with the help of pattern ERG, whether it can detect the dying cells much before the actual loss. So at this point of time, not being a glaucoma person, but this I have taken from another presentation, the current method to assess what is the current method, the two current methods of at this point of time, the practices of visual fields and OCT. And this is just to show that once the OCT and visual fields start showing some glaucomatous change, we diagnose them as a glaucoma patient. And if we can intervene early, the point at which the visual field and OCT is not showing changes, but these sinusoidal waves of ERG are showing changes, the question is whether it can go back to normal or not. So this was another paper. Basically, what these people have done is that they could show that if the variability of the phase is high, which I think Paraj will agree that we had a very high variability, especially in P50. The question is if the answer to the variability was that if there is an increased intra-session variability of the phase, this is an early sign of retinal ganglion cell dysfunction. And I'm just trying to give a basic of how a pattern ERG report looks like. This is the sinusoidal pattern that we see. This is basically about the fixation pattern. This is another pattern at a lower contrast. This is another pattern at the lower contrast level. So this is 100% contrast. Here they have reduced the contrast of the checkerboard. So this is 85% contrast, and this is 100% contrast. And so this is the first waveform that you will see in the report. This is the normal sinusoidal pattern. Basically, this particular waveform is a replication of multiple waveforms, and the variability in those multiple waveforms can be seen in magnitude D. So these are the numbers, these are the report numbers that we get. So the first thing is magnitude. Magnitude is nothing but the magnitude of this particular wave from the lowest point to the highest point. So that is the magnitude.
May I interrupt, sir, 1 minute?
हाँ बोलो ना Paraj.
Sir, why don't we have those typical waves? Is the negative wave, the positive, and the
I will tell you
wave.
because of this.
And One more thing, sir.
Yeah.
In the earlier versions, I think we had two sizes of the checkered board. One was, I think, 8 degree, other was 16.
16
I
degree.
remember.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, what is the significance of that, and how is that incorporated in this newer machine? Was my question.
So in this machine, you can change the checkerboard pattern. You can have 8 degrees and 16 degrees. Both you can have.
Okay, so that needs to be done, and
That
how?
I
What?
don't think they have. I don't think they have published it, or at least I don't. I don't know. I think Sanjay can tell us whether they have published on the difference between 8 degrees and 16 degrees. But the previous question of yours of why we don't have N35 and P50 is because what they have actually done is, and that is what I was coming to this thing. See, this is basically the number of waves that you get. Like they will do multiple waveforms of N35 P50, N35 P50, and then they will take out an average of that. But taking an average basically means that you are changing the data a little bit. So what they have also done is they give you that particular data in magnitude D. Magnitude D is magnitude by phase variability. Basically the magnitude, this is the magnitude. This is the actual magnitude of the wave. And then there is variability in that because you will have multiple waveforms. And when you have multiple waveforms, what machine wants to tell us is how much is the variability in that. And after that, they will have a magnitude D divided by magnitude. So that will give a ratio of how healthy it is. I don't think they have, Sanjay, do they have a study of comparison of 8 degree and 16 degree checkerboard size?
Sir, no. We are what Diopsis is trying to do is we are trying to set a standard. If we do it on two different 8 degrees and 16 degrees thing, it's a slight confusion because we want to really come to a point where we can use a single tool to really focus and say, okay, this is glaucomatous or not. We are focusing on only one this thing
I
right
think,
now. So
I think
we
Paraj,
do have
So,
a
so what
possibility.
size is used in this machine? I mean, by default,
by default, it is 16 degree checkerboard size.
16 degree. And magnitude D, is it the standard deviation, or how do we interpret magnitude D? Because the magnitude says 2 and magnitude D is 1.74. So what does that tell us?
1.74 tells us the amount of variability depending on the different, see, this is, I will tell you.
So it's
So the
basically an
multiple,
average.
I understood, sir, but what does that number, say a number 1.7 versus a number, is it in the same unit as the magnitude D?
no,
What is the unit of
it is not the
magnitude
same
D?
unit. I think magnitude D is maybe same unit. It will be in microvolts, but I think with the phase variability, it is averaged out over a period of number of phases.
Okay, but this shows that it has no unit. So how is it actually calculated?
So magnitude D is also microvolts.
Is also
No.
microvolts.
I think what they are doing is they are taking multiple waveforms and magnitude. जो magnitude है that I think is a single
Average.
variable. That is the average, but they are that they have not mentioned how they are calculating magnitude D. What they say for magnitude D is in magnitude D they incorporate the phase variability. If the variability is large, the magnitude D will go down.
Will go down. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, what magnitude D tell magnitude, if magnitude is normal, the point being, even if the magnitude is normal and magnitude D is abnormal, it shows that the phase variability is very high and there is a chance that there is a retinal ganglion cell dysfunction. So if
so ideally the magnitude, the magnitude D should be as close as possible to the magnitude. Then the variability is low.
Then the variability is low. Very true. So magnitude D basically tells us, see, you did a pattern, ERG, you stimulated, you sent a checkerboard pattern, and then you got a magnitude, and this they do multiple times. So at one point of time, that cell is responding well. At another point, that cell is not responding well. What it basically means is that that cell is sick, and probably it is not responding every every time you do it, you are not getting the same response, which means that there is a variability in what you are doing. So they are trying to use that particular variability as a tool to show that that particular variability is a sign.
Right.
Like the variability which we were getting, we were actually thinking why we are getting such a great variability. So I think that particular variability they are trying to use as a tool by saying that if the response is variable, then it is a sign that there are 6 cells. And so if magnitude D, as you rightly said, is closer to magnitude, it means that and that is why so that your question is also answered in MACD upon MAG ratio. So if the MACD upon MAG ratio is 1, it means that variability is less.
Everything is fine. Yes.
Everything is fine. So so the third parameter is answered with this discussion itself, that if your MACD versus MAG ratio is close to 1, it should be as close to 1 as possible. So if it is close to 1, it means that things are better. Variability is less. So instead of giving standard deviation, they have done it by giving a phase variability. I think they can even give a standard deviation by giving a magnitude and then plotting, because in the profile in the company brochure, they're not writing how do they calculate magnitude D. They just say that it depends on the phase variability and magnitude.
Right. Then they can calculate the standard deviation and give the confidence limits also.
Very
so
true.
Tell us how
I
much
think
it is.
I think the confidence limit is what they are using for this color coding. If it is outside, so if they so possibly if it is outside their confidence interval, they are giving a yellow or a red this thing. Basically, the last 3 things are not, I mean, they are just like similar to what we already read: SNR, artifact, and response analysis. But main thing is these 3 things to be seen. SNR is sound to noise ratio, and artifact is
signal to
significant noise.
Signal to noise.
Signal to noise ratio.
Signal to noise ratio. Yes.
So what is the ideal SNR? How low should it be? I mean, lower than what would be we should discard the readings. I mean, what is the cutoff for SNR?
What is the cutoff for SNR, Sanjay?
Sir, very frankly, signal to noise ratio is not a, the first thing, we have not color coded it. That shows that we really do not give too much of an importance to signal to noise ratio, because signal to noise ratio can also be like, the noise could be high in if like the patient is blinking too much, or so what we go by is basically is the number of artifacts. We see that the artifacts should be as low as possible rather than the signal to noise ratio.
No, but like you said, that if the SNR is high, it shows that patient is blinking too much, and that shows that the readings that we are getting may or may not be very reliable.
Yes.
In fact, if it is high, you may get an artificially high magnitude, because if they are blinking, that would also be taken as an electrophysiological response by the machine or the junction box.
Right. So something needs to be done for that also. I think we can do a research and find out how it affects.
How much? Yes.
And artifacts and the response analysis calculated, or what do they show us, Mr. Sanjay?
I think that is a good thing which can be done. Abhi, at this point of time, to be honest, I wanted to discuss whether pattern ERG, although there are a lot of data that it works well. The whole point was, the whole reason of this meeting was to generate ideas whether actually it is, there are articles, there are all theoretical publications. I can quote even more publications, but we want to find out for our practical use whether we can use it as a tool for predicting the glaucoma reliably, and whether we can help and do the thing again and find out whether it is reversing the cell loss or not.
Right. No, just try to make sense of whatever the printout tells us. So, anyways, we can discuss that later. I am sure we can.
So this is MACD and MAG ratio is the same as we discussed. We just discussed it one slide before. So basically it tells us the repeatability of the phase response. So MACD is basically showing the variability. This is the pure magnitude. And if you divide, you should be close to 1. This is similar to what we see, in visual field. This is a trend report. You can do it over a period of time and you can have the trend report of progression of the disease. So this is how the trend report looks. Another new thing which has come up is PHNR. And PHNR is nothing but the photopic negative response. This is the A wave and this is the B wave. And this is we call it, this is I think the C wave. But there is a photopic negative response that you get from ganglion cells. So this is the first wave that you get from the actual photoreceptors, the depolarization, and then you get it from the bipolar cells. And then this is the wave which we get from the ganglion cells, the second kernel response. And so this is how they show that the amplitude and the latency would be reduced in a glaucoma patient. This is the report as you can see that it is mainly about the B wave latency and B wave amplitude. This is they're talking about this particular wave, and then they are talking about PHNR latency, which is this wave, and because PHNR will be calculated from the highest point of B wave, so from there they are calculating the amplitude, which will be negative, and this is the negative amplitude, and this is the latency, the time which has passed from this point to this point. So it is supposed to be more latent, rather it would be late in a glaucoma patient, and the latency is supposed to be more sensitive for this particular thing. Amplitude is not
Manik
as.
कैसे? हाँ?
So this is one of
Manik
the
उसको कैसे?
patient.
कान में आ पेरे.
This is one of the patient. These are not my patients. These are taken from the. I mean, these are from diopsies only. These are not my patient. I don't have much experience with glaucoma, pattern ERG in glaucoma. Mainly the theoretical aspect I know, but I have not done many pattern ERGs in glaucoma. There's one of the patient which was a glaucoma suspect, IOP between 23-22, right eye, left eye. This is the OCT, and this was the pattern ERG. We can see this is the 100% contrast, and this is at a lower contrast. But we can see that there is a problem in the pattern ERG, and it shows here also that there is a problem in pattern ERG. And this is another patient of glaucoma suspect, and these are the discs. This is the OCT report, and it is showing almost normal OCTs. These are the visual fields, again quite normal fields, and these are the pattern ERGs which are almost normal, but they kept on doing serial pattern ERGs and they kept on following up the patient, and they found that here it started showing some problem. And this is another patient where they are trying to they're similar patient with complaints of visual disturbances, 25 and 24. So patient was a ocular hypertensive. Visual field doesn't show much of changes. This is the OCT, and this was the pattern ERG, and they did SLT 180 degrees in both the eyes. This was a very this is the case which is very good, in which they have shown that they tried to treat it before any signs of field and OCT changes, and this was only on the basis of pattern ERG, and 2 months later they again did a pattern ERG. The IOP was obviously reduced to 16, and the pattern ERG showed some retinal improvement, as you can see. So this was a paper on the same thing, that the ideal goal would be towards reversing the dying cells. And I just added a word restoring, if at all we can discuss and find out whether we can also restore the dying cells. So that was regarding the presentation, and we can, we can start discussion.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sir, how frequently we should follow a patient on pattern ERG if we suspect a glaucoma?
So,
If the first ERG are normal and if we suspect.
I think, so to be honest, I don't know. I think in these particular cases, they were following it at 6 months, but
Okay.
I'm not sure how frequently. If we are doing HRT or OCT, I think the frequency should be similar to that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Paraj, you have to unmute.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, nobody knows how frequently this needs to be done. HRT sir is no longer available, so OCT is the main thing that we normally do. So possibly every time the patient comes to you for follow-up, you can probably do the ERG and find out how things are progressing. There's no harm in doing it if the patient can afford it. I think it should be done because there are so many questions that are yet to be answered. We are not absolutely sure as to what our protocol should be. How often do we need to see it? How what is the duration which it may precede the actual development of, say, conversion from OHT to glaucoma? That is also something which we need to find out. Whether a patient with a family history, strong family history of glaucoma, and himself being normal at this time and point, will he develop glaucoma? After what time would he develop glaucoma? Would he be at a high risk of developing glaucoma? These are the questions that need to be, I think, answered. But the more often you can do it, I think the better it would be, the more information we'll be able to get, and then probably in future we can make some guideline as to how we should do it. But at least, like Dr. Jethani said, as often as you would do your imaging, I think this may be done.
How
Okay, sir.
frequently do we, how frequently are we assessing the patient of an ocular hypertensive? Like if an ocular hypertensive patient is there, how frequently we will be planning to do visual fields? I mean, if it is a normal field.
Right. Normal fields, I think not before 6 months at least. So 6 months or a year, yearly follow-up is something that we normally do. So 6 monthly OCT probably is something that one would be doing. So 6 monthly ERG is something that you can do, but the patient would be following up with you more often. So I probably call the patient every 3 to 4 months and then do the fields and OCT, say, yearly, and see how things are going. And I'll always be on the lookout for the RNFL defects on my examination. So this is how I would normally talk about patient.
At this point of time, do we feel that if an ocular hypertensive patient is there with a normal OCT and a normal visual field, do we feel that we should do a pattern ERG and start treating on the basis of pattern ERG? I mean, do we feel if there is a abnormal pattern ERG, because pattern ERG will not be affected by cataract much? I mean,
right. So the problem with OHT conversion to glaucoma is that historically also only 1% will develop glaucoma over a period of, say, 1 year, or 5% over a period of 5 years. So
that is too
low. So as such, the person's progressing from OHT to glaucoma, the proportion is quite less. So being very aggressive is something that we normally don't do. But if at all, if we can point out those patients who are more likely to go on and develop glaucoma, then that would be a good thing, because then we do away with unnecessarily treating those patients who are unlikely to convert to glaucoma. So if there is a way to find out that this particular subset is more likely to convert to glaucoma, then that would be a good option to have.
I think we need to find out with the pattern ERG that how much it will precede the OCT changes. I mean, so that we can space out, as Dr. Karvi asked, so that we can space out our investigation based on that. So if we have done a pattern ERG now, maybe it would take around a year or 2 years before it shows any OCT changes. That I think that is also available.
Our current cutoff for, treating OHT is normally 28 to, for me it is 28, because more than that, if the pressure is higher, then there is risk of vein occlusions. So unless the patient is more than 28, I would not straight away start the medication in that particular patient. So if we can, through pattern ERG, if we can find out whether the patient is likely to progress, then that would be a good thing. And also if the pattern ERG reverses on starting treatment, that is again an assurance that everything is going on well. So that is something which will also help us in following up such patients, even if we have started treatment in them.
Okay.
This would be same for thin cornea than thick cornea. It doesn't make much of a difference, right?
If it's a thin cornea, then obviously the risk is higher. So then
Higher,
the threshold would be lower to start treatment. But again, it has to be individualized. But absolute pressure of more than 28, even if it's a thin
Obviously.
cornea, I would be
No,
starting.
I'm just saying that between those 20 to 28, which will be the patients, like if your pressure is between 21 to 28, who will be the patients who should be, seen with more caution?
Patients who have a strong family history, those who have a CCT which is on the lower side, I think these are the patients which need more follow up, and we need to be more careful and scrutinize things, all the examinations, to see whether there is even a slightest hint of progression or whatever. So those are the patients who are we are likely to follow up more frequently. But again, like I said, the historical rate of conversions are so low that being over aggressive is something that doesn't
Not
seem to
needed.
make any sense.
True.
Yes.
And what about those patients where you see some OCT changes, but clinically you feel that this is not really, sometimes OCT does show some changes, but we know that, disc is absolutely fine and there is
Right.
nothing much. I mean, they are basically the patients which are glaucoma suspects. So not
So
really
two things.
suspects also. Yeah.
Right. So two things. One, if there are certain changes on OCT, I would do serial OCTs to find out whether it is actually increasing or not. Because sometimes OCT, can give you false, what we call as red diseases. You'll get red everywhere, but the patient might be okay. So unless the defect is progressing, because the repeatability is quite good for OCT, these modern OCTs. So if on serial follow-ups you see that the changes are more than say 5 to 10 microns, that may be a red flag. But usually, if you are in the habit of doing a good slit lamp biomicroscopy, you can definitely pick up those early, wedge-shaped RNFL defects. You don't actually need an OCT to tell you that there is a RNFL defect. They're color-free, red-free photographs, or if you just take fundus photographs, it is quite helpful in seeing that. But if at all you're not seeing anything and you see changes on OCT, do serial OCTs to confirm whether the changes are progressing. If they are not progressing, then again there's no point in starting treatment. So repeat as often as you can, and then plan your further course of action.
Maybe in those patients we can do a pattern ERG and find out whether there is actually a problem or not, because OCT may not be. I mean, we may have to do a comparison to find out whether OCT is actually working in those patients or not.
Right. So I think Dr. Neeta Mehta is asking
Yes.
a question in OCT whether you consider RNFL or ganglion cell. So I think the most normative database that whatever we have is more with the OCT RNFL. So for early to moderate stages of the disease, we have studies to show that both RNFL and ganglion cell parameters are equally good or equally bad. There's not much difference. The best RNFL parameter is as good as the best the macular parameters. So you can use either of them. However, in the studies now are showing that in the advanced stages, when the RNFL reaches the floor effect, the macular parameters or the ganglion cell parameters may be helpful, slightly more helpful in telling you whether the patient is progressing or not, because that floor effect is not as easily reached for the macular parameters as compared to the RNFL. So for early to moderate stages or the pre-perimetric stage where the OCT is actually the most useful and the perimetry may sometimes not tell you those early changes, both RNFL and macular parameters are equally good. For moderate to advanced glaucoma, anyways, you should use only the perimeter ideally, and not too much reliability on the OCT should be there. But if at all you want to use the OCT, then the macular parameters are something you want to look at and not the RNFL parameters for the more advanced stages.
Yeah, but when we are talking about like very early pre-perimetric with pattern ERG, we are talking about pre-OCT. Is there actually an entity of pre-OCT? I mean, is there a space of pre-OCT or not? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We don't know, but if at all we can, find out, and whether if it's possible to detect someone at that stage, I think that would be the ideal way. Sooner the better, but at the same time, we have to be careful about false positives also, because we don't want to unnecessarily burden the patient with
treatment in patients who do not have glaucoma. Yeah, that's true.
Because every treatment has its own set of problems, and you don't want them to, and they are going to be on it for their life, the rest of their lives. So you want to be absolutely sure and avoid false positives as much as possible.
I think that is where the whole role is about whether when you do the test after treatment, whether it improves the, as you said, whether it improves the function or not. But that is the whole idea of doing it.
Right. So I think three things which the ERG should ideally tell us which ocular hypertensives are likely to cross over to glaucoma, and after what roughly, even though duration we may not know, but if we can find out that these particular patients are at a higher risk, that is a good thing. Secondly, that we normally encounter in routine practices, family history wale patients, those patients
Yes.
who have seen their grandfathers, grandmothers, fathers have lost their eyes because of glaucoma. If at all we can have a way to find out whether they are at risk of going through that same way, same path, then that would be great. And like you said, the third thing, response to treatment, whether our treatment is adequate or not, instead of waiting for visual fields or OCT to progress, say on over a 6 months or 12-month period, if ERG can tell us at an earlier stage, then that would be something that would be worth pursuing, I think.
I think that is what Neeta madam is also asking. She's asking, I mean, if there is a comparison between, can we have a comparison between pattern ERG OCT with GCC? So there are some reports available already, but I mean, I tried to present some of the studies where they have tried to show that pattern ERG does predict before that, but then the numbers are not very high, because as Parag said, that the change from ocular hypertension to true glaucoma is a very small percentage of cases. So sometimes what happens is that the numbers may not have got converted even otherwise. So but there is a definitive evidence that that pattern ERG may predict it before. Now whether it is predicting it reliably, that is also published. I mean, they have their data. There are papers where they publish that it is quite repeatable and quite reliable, but I mean, we need to do it for ourselves if we want to find out. I mean, we can do it on our own patients to see whether it is working or not, because couple of cases does not mean that it is there for all the patients, and that is where the importance of a new investigation is.
Right. And just one more thing I wanted to clarify or ask rather is, like in OCTs, if we switch a particular brand of OCTs, and again comparison goes haywire. So is same is applicable only also for the pattern ERGs? The same thing needs to be done, or can we have comparisons from the other brands if we have, say, an ERG other machines?
No. The problem with the major issue with ERG is that electrodes, yes, the electrodes and the software. So this particular software which they are using, so the old machine which we are using, Roland machine which we are using, Paraj, at Vaduwala, that machine was giving N35 and P50, and the good part of that was that that particular pattern ERG was basically useful for differentiating whether the visual dysfunction is because of the macula or because of the disc. So if you have if the N35 or P50 is affected, the earlier part is affected because of maculopathy, and if there is a maculopathy, you have to do a multifocal ERG. So that was the algorithm designed by Dr. Graham Holder and Joachim Finger, which they published in 2002, where they were basically into defining the visual function as to which level it was. With diopsis, what they have done is they are trying to push pattern ERG by using artificial intelligence in glaucoma, by giving these red, green and yellow boxes similar to OCT, where a normal a non-glaucoma or a non-electrophysiology person can interpret and say that this is red and this is green. So their red, their orange, their green would be different from any other lab.
So what is the normative database of diopsies? Have they done it on normal patients, glaucoma patients?
Yes.
Have they their own
they have it
on that?
On their website. They have it on their website. Their normative they have, but there are other researchers who have done it. The reason why I brought this in this particular group was that I wanted to know how much aware we are about it and what we can do about it. Because see, studies are published. We all are researchers. We have published. We want to find out the actual practical use of the whole thing. That is the whole purpose of discussion. For a lab-based research, if we have something for a lab-based research, It is meant for labs. It is not meant for clinical persuasion. I mean, we can do it on patients or not. That is the whole point.
And again, would the normative differ for different races, like whatever you have OCT or
I don't think they
European
have
ancestry?
normative of Indian population. We are doing normative for them,
Right.
but they don't have normative for Indian population. We are doing normative for PHNR for them. We got PHNR. We were the first to have PHNR in the country. That was mainly for getting the normative data for that. We are still into assimilating the data for that. But this pattern ERG, we are not doing any normative at this point of time, because this comes with a normative that the company has.
Right.
The red, green, and yellow, orange plots. This data is there with the company.
I think it would be interesting to note whether that normative does it have Indian eyes, or whether it is different for Indians as compared to whatever they have, say, European eyes.
Yes. That may be
something
different.
that may be different. So again, comparison would require you to have that particular race's normative database to be absolutely sure. Again, if at all it changes with race, I don't know.
Sanjay, you want to comment on this?
Sir, I'm really. So the normative data, what Dr. Paraj asked, what I heard was, I missed a bit of it in the middle. It was about multi-ethnicity, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
Am I right, Paraj?
Right. Yes.
Paraj, Diopsis has about 2,500 installations in the US, and the normative database that they collected was from about 16 sites. And
in the US,
yes. Okay. And these 16 sites, what they tried was to include multi-ethnicity people. In US, you have people of the African origin, Indian origin, the Chinese and things. They tried to do it, but nothing like separated kind of thing. And what, I have spoken to a couple of doctors there when I was there in November. What they say is they do not find much variance because of the ethnicity. And that is the very reason, we wanted, Dr. Jethani is already doing the normative database here collection for us. And we really want to correlate and ensure that are they right or we do have variability.
So any age or gender changes that are there?
Certainly we have done 18 to 80 years of age normative data, and there is certainly that incorporated into the software. And we are in the process, sir, as sir mentioned briefly, we already have some kind of AI into the software. There is a new version of AI which was expected to be launched in July, but unfortunately due to the COVID things, everything stopped, and maybe once things are normal, it will take about 4 or 5 months to come up with the new AI software. Photopic negative response is something I'm just adding to what had gone earlier was, photopic negative response is a new test that we have added, as sir said. And, there was a point raised, macular function and RNFL function. So with using the PHNR graph and looking at the PHNR graph, maybe that will also give us some idea where the disease is starting first. So these are things we are developing things, and with Diopsis, the best part of it is you connect the machine to the internet. Now this is something maybe market I'm talking of. I'm sorry on this, but the software updates are automatic. You don't need to get on to somewhere, download a software and update. Or you just connect the machine to the internet and you get the software updated automatically. No charges, nothing. Everything is online there.
And one more clarification I wanted actually was, Dr. Jethani talked about the trend-based analysis, if I
yes,
am not mistaken. So does it tell you what happens, say if the current trend continues, what is going to happen after say 3 years or 5 years is one part of the question. The second question is, do you have an event-based analysis kind of a thing that, these were the readings at this follow-up, these have deteriorated to this at this particular follow-up, and we are likely to see, there is, like we have in perimetry or an OCT, this is a likely progression or this is a possible progression. Do you have something like that, an event-based analysis, or you just have a trend, and how do you extrapolate the trend as to, like we have in OCT perimetry, like, if this trend continues after 3 years or 5 years, this is how the patient is going to look like at the end. So anything similar to that you have in your software?
So you mean something like predicting the future? No, we do not have it right.
I'm predicting the future dysfunction of the cells, not actually, I don't know.
So no.
No. I don't think they have.
No, we do not have. We do not
They
have.
So
just
what does
have
the trend
the
actually
trend
tell
shows
you?
the trend shows the magnitude MACD phase.
At each time of
Yes.
exam. So that is
basically it
similar
gives
to
a graph.
event.
Basically it gives
Okay.
you a graphical report whether this thing is dipping down or not. That's what it gives. I don't think they have but that is a good suggestion. I think Sanjay, you should give that suggestion to them, because it is a wonderful suggestion that if you can incorporate MACD and this thing, the magnitude versus MACD ratio, which is the more sensitive one, if that can predict whether this particular patient on multiple follow-ups, whether it can go and progress to glaucoma or not. It would need a lot of data. It would need a lot of data to predict such a huge thing. But that would be a good thing, because again, it will be wonderful for a clinical practitioner to know that this particular patient over a period of time has deteriorated, and we should start treatment in this particular patient. Because I was listening to a lecture from Bill, and he said that as a ERG person, we can just tell the clinical person that it seems to be deteriorating. But if you give them a trend report which shows that he is deteriorating, then as a ERG person, you don't have to suggest anything. You can just give a trend report. That is what you mean to say, Parath?
Yes. So what basically is talked about as trend is actually an event, just telling you how things are going at the various events where you have actually done the test on the patient. So like you rightly summed it up. I think if we can do something like that, that would be wonderful. And so Dr. Aditi had some question, if you can take her. Please unmute, sir.
Her question is if there's a vision cutoff. Basically, in pattern ERG, if the patient is able to fix, so I think reliable pattern ERG would come if the patient is able to fix to the particular. So in pattern ERG, you have a fixation target in the center. So your visual acuity should be at least 636 or 624, so that you are able to. So it is at a distance of 1 meter. But there is a cross in the center, so you should be able to fix to that particular cross.
So Jethani sir, please confirm. Can we use the PHNR better if the patient has a poor vision?
See, honestly speaking, with PHNR, the only problem that I see is that
because we are using a Gans field there.
Yeah, we can use a PHNR, but if the vision is so low, I don't know how much the reliability will be, because the normative data which we have is on a good vision. So see, the problem is that whatever data we are giving to the clinician or to the person who's doing the ERG is in the light of a good vision. Now, if you have do not have a good vision, or rather if you cannot fix what you are measuring, you don't know what you are measuring. You are measuring something, but with electrophysiology, you are not really sure what is coming. I mean, what is coming to your way. So it would be difficult and unreliable to, I mean, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know what we will be doing.
So isn't it the vice versa? Because, with electrophysiology, because we are simulating cells with light and getting a response, it's not a subjective test, it's more objective.
I will tell you.
Won't it be?
I will tell you what happens with electrophysiology is that whatever ganglions are there, they will give a response.
Yes, sir.
So the whole point of doing a pattern ERG is that if patient is able to fixate on that particular target, only then you are getting a macular response. If patient is looking on the right side, you are getting a response, but you are getting it a response from the temporal cells. You are not getting it from the macula. The problem in glaucoma is that we are mainly concerned about the we are mainly concerned about the macular ganglions. See, pattern ERG represents macula as a macular function ERG. If you do a focal ERG, see, if you do a PHNR, what happens is that you get response from all over the retina. You get a global response. With pattern ERG, why pattern ERG is more sensitive, at least I consider it more sensitive than PHNR is, because pattern ERG tells you mainly about macula, which consists of majority of the ganglions. So that is the reason you can do a PHNR, you can give a report. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know how much reliable or how much repeatable that would be.
Right, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Because PHNR will give you response from peripheral ganglions also. Although they don't have much of a representation in the disc, but the major ones are in the center. But if your visual acuity or your fixation is not holding in the center, what will happen is the patient is looking at other side and light is going and stimulating some other, you have to have a good reliable fixation to get a repeatable and a reliable pattern ERG.
Yes, certainly.
Any other question?
Neeta had a comment that she has a subset of patients with strong family history. So perhaps we can collect data from such patients and see as to what happens and whether some changes are seen on the electrophysiology part and pattern ERG, and whether something happens or
that
everything
would be
remains
ideal.
the same.
Yes, that would be ideal thing, because if we can do ERG in these patients, we can find out in future whether they progress or whether we can get an early early presumptive diagnosis that these patients would convert into a glaucoma patient. Are there any other questions? I mean, I cannot think of any other question. Do you have any other question?
So I don't see any.
Okay, so we can. Any comments, Paraj?
No, sir. Actually, I think we had a very good discussion, and
I think we learned a lot.
We learned a lot, and we came to know how it can be used and what are the things we need to use it for. If I think everyone gets that take-home message, you can probably try and see how we can maximize the use of ERG.